Welcome everyone coming in from the waiting room. We're gonna wait just another minute or so for people to come in and join us, and then we'll get started shortly. Welcome UC San Diego staff. My name is Bryce Besser. I'm the chair-elect for the UC San Diego Staff Association. And on behalf of the Staff Association and Human Resources, I'd like to welcome you to another installment of Cabinet Conversations. For those of you that have joined us in the past, you've heard me say this before, but for our newcomers, Cabinet Conversations is a series of conversations with cabinet members, and it's designed to allow staff to get to know our executive leaders on a more personal level, and also to hear from them about top of mind issues that are impacting our campus. It came out of your requests in the Staff at Work survey, the Council for UC Staff Assemblies engagement survey, and the idea wave that was part of the Staff Association strategic plan. Today's webinar features Vice Chancellor Sandra Brown. She's the Vice Chancellor for Research Affairs. And before we begin, just a few quick housekeeping items. So as you all can see, we are recording this, and we will put the recording up on the Staff Association website shortly after it's concluded. For those of you who haven't submitted questions before today, you can do so by using the question and answer function. Moderators are monitoring the question and answers, and so they can forward them over to me as they come in. And time permitting, we'll try to get to as many questions as you can. We want to try to make this as interactive as possible. So if you have any questions for Vice Chancellor Brown as we're going along, please feel free to type those in, and we'll do our best to get to them. For any questions that we're not able to get to today, we'll go ahead and save those, and we can share them with VC Brown's office. But we can also forward them if it's a question that might be better served by going to a different department. We can send it over that way and try to get the response to that. So without further ado, I wanted to welcome Vice Chancellor Sandra Brown. How are you doing, VC Brown?
Well, I'm doing fine, thank you. And thank you, Bryce. Please call me Sandy. And I want to thank you and all of the Staff Association for putting these conversations together.
Well, thank you.
Yeah,
thank you, Sandy.
I think that during the pandemic, we all feel a bit isolated. And so it's really nice to have some mechanisms like this when we can actually share and talk together in new ways.
Well, thank you so much, Sandy. We really do appreciate your time carving it out from your busy schedule. And I'm excited to get to talk to you a little bit more today. I've had a chance to work with a number of departments that are kind of in your portfolio. And so we'll get a chance to learn a little bit more about them today as well. So typically we like to kind of just start out by asking how you're doing. So how are you doing right now? And what types of things are you doing, to keep yourself busy and healthy during the social distancing restrictions?
Yeah, well, it's really difficult for all of us, isn't it? I work predominantly from home, but on occasions like this, I come into the office, so I can either meet with people if needed, or participate in things where I want to feel really confident in my internet connection, like anything that's campus-wide, like the town halls or some of the national organization meetings. Personally, I'm doing well. I will say it's nice to be with my husband so much. He works in one office. I work on the opposite side of the wall in what has become my office at home. And I have two grown children whom I don't get to see as much. Either the one who lives here in San Diego, my son, or my daughter who lives up in the San Francisco area. So in that way, these are challenging times, I think, for everyone.
Yeah, I know that, it's been a wild ride sometimes, right? When it comes to the last year. And I hope that many of us have been able to kind of hit our stride at certain times of the year.
Yeah.
go with the ups and be able to be resilient to the downs. So definitely appreciate you sharing a little bit more about kind of how it's been working for you personally. You also have a presentation to share, and so we have that up right now. So I'm excited to see what you have to share. Why don't we go ahead and you can run through that now. To those that are joining us, please feel free if you have questions as Sandy is running through her presentation. You can put them in the questions and answers, and we'll try to answer them in real time or have Sandy answer them in real time. But I'll go ahead and take a step back. Sandy, why don't you go ahead and run through your presentation?
Okay, happy to do that. Thank you, Bryce. I thought that I would share just a few things that I thought might be top of mind for those that are on the Zoom call, or actually, if you don't know much about our office, just give you a little quick overview. But I certainly welcome questions at any point along the way. Happy to talk. I'm always happy to talk in detail about what we do at UC San Diego with regard to research. So first of all, if I could move my slides. Try again. Don't seem to be moving forward.
So if we can click on the screen, we tried to troubleshoot this.
Yeah.
There we go.
So first, just to let people know that most folks, I think, when they think about the Vice Chancellor for Research, they think, oh, she or he oversees contracts and grants. But there are lots of things besides contracts and grants that we have to oversee. We have centers, multidisciplinary centers on campus, and visiting scholars in the natural reserve system, all of which link to our academic responsibilities. Then we do have research support in a variety of different ways, not just through contracts and grants, but through research development and our innovation and commercialization program. And then finally, this isn't the fun part of my job, but maybe for the campus, one of the more important parts. It's all those things that we do in research to make sure that we're fully in compliance with what the state and federal requirements are. And so you see that list of things there that we oversee. We're really a pretty big operation here at UC San Diego, almost 1.5 billion. And the majority of that comes from different types of federal agencies. Hence, it's so important for us to stay in compliance with those requirements. At a national level, we probably do more research than all but 2 universities across the country. And in the international realm, we're seen as the 3rd research university for high quality research. That's takes into account both the volume that we do, but also the publication venues where our faculty publish. So I see my job as being all about making it easier for faculty and researchers, students to do their research, and everything is really geared around that. During the pandemic, this has been a bit of a challenge. Let me just see if I can get this going again.
Sometimes it just goes a little slow.
Yeah, we may end up skipping a few slides, but you know, it was really tough at UC San Diego, like many other campuses, where we needed to close as many research settings. And let's see, many research settings. And so we got down to a very small level on campus. We went all the way down to 15% at the very beginning, about a year ago, frankly. And that was, we did a great job, I think, of keeping really critical research open, and developed a campus-wide plan that, frankly, the staff were critical in designing and affecting, but it included faculty and staff and students from all across campus so that we could keep as much of the labs open as possible and make sure we're maintaining opportunities for our students and our faculty, while at the same time adhering to the guidelines. So we're looking to the next step, which where we're going to hopefully be able to scale up soon. It's all contingent on what the state requirements are and the county requirements as well.
And if you want us to advance the slide, I think we can do that.
You know, Bryce, why don't you do that? Because I seem to keep having some challenges with that. Yeah, so if you do that, be better. So right now, we have almost 6,400 people on campus at one time or another over the course of every week or 2 weeks. They're predominantly in about 20 buildings on campus, but many more than that. You can see we have some buildings like the ACTRI, where there are over 400 people that are in that building. But we also have, like in Jacobs Hall, you know, there are about 250 people there every week. So it varies a lot. And everybody who's there adheres to what the campus policy is. And we've got lots of ways to try to be helpful. Want to thank in particular facilities and management and EH&S for creating these little research ramp up packages of safety materials for each laboratory that I think made it a lot easier rather than individual researchers or faculty needing to independently get the appropriate materials, sanitation and masks and gloves and such. So we're doing really, I think, a great job. I know that there are a lot more people that would like to be on campus and doing their research. And we're actually trying to work out to be fully ready so that as soon as the county says, oh, you can increase your density, that we're going to be able to do that ramp up. So that's where we are from the pandemic side. If you could move the slide, Bryce, thank you. But from a bigger picture perspective, as a university, we are really committed to having a public impact. Part of that is by the jobs that we create. Part of it is by the funding that we generate in the community by bringing all these grants here. In fact, a few years ago, the San Diego Economic Development Corporation did a study of all of the research institutes in San Diego, and of the 4.6 billion at that time, we accounted for 2.6 billion of that. So about 55 to 60% of the total research that's done in the community. And we're one of the top areas in the nation, in particular for biotechnology. So it's a very exciting place to be. It's a fun place to be as a vice chancellor for research. I really love this part of my job. Next slide, please. Thank you. One of the reasons I love it is that you can do new things. And so when I came into the position a number of years ago, we had a technology transfer office that focused a lot on just the transactions. And I felt, along with the Chancellor, Chancellor Kosla, that we needed to do much more and to bring innovation and commercialization, information and opportunities to our students. So every year now we have about 100 technologies that are created just on our campus through research programs, over 500 new inventions every year. And you can see on this slide that things have just boomed, and we have many students involved in our training programs for entrepreneurship and innovation every year. And my job is really to try to bring the campus together, because there are so many parts of campus that are doing that. And I'm sure for the staff that are on the Zoom today that many of your programs, whether you're in engineering, health sciences, business, many programs are involved in doing that. And our job is to try to be the glue for that, to look for ways to facilitate your efforts.
Yeah, and I work in risk management, and so I have a varied role, and I've had an opportunity to work with innovation and commercialization throughout the years on a wide variety of things. I'm not a patent attorney, right? I mean, I'm an attorney by trade, but not a patent attorney. So it's a different language for me. And I've always found that staff, Donna Shaw and others in that office, have just been extremely helpful and just really good people. So they're doing a wonderful job there. I think what really wowed me more about what kind of the direction that office has been going is also the focus on kind of startups.
Yes.
That and that aspect. So again, really kind of showing how, UC San Diego can help support the community and others around us, right? I think that's a really cool initiative.
Well, the research and innovation it's really one of the top 3 forms of the economy in San Diego, and we're the driver there. And by that I mean you're the driver there. Our students are, our faculty are, our staff are, because of all the creativity that we have. And there's so much that we learn through our fundamental research that we can then bring out for public good. Sometimes we make a little money on it. We love it when we can because it helps support the campus. But most importantly, it brings products or helps us develop policies that are helpful to our community. I'll just give you an example. During the pandemic, our campus was one of the first to offer research PPE, protective wear, for clinical service providers at the very beginning of the pandemic, when there just wasn't enough. And we managed to find ways to get, to reimburse the researchers for that. But it was remarkable to me how quickly they stood up helping efforts. And we have, I think at this point, something like $60 million here that's on COVID research alone to try to understand the disease, to understand how we can prevent it, and also understand how we can treat it. And you guys all know, because you have to fill out those health screening forms every day, that we're paying great attention to this. There are not very many campuses in the country where you can go over to a vending machine and get your test and do your nasal swab and be done in 5 minutes, and then be informed of the results, within 12 hours or so. So it's a pretty cool place to be, exciting, and people are not afraid to be innovative here. And that's part of what makes it a fun place to work. Part of my job also is to support those efforts on campus that are in fact very innovative. Usually they involve faculty, staff, and students from different parts of campus coming together in new ways. Our Data Science Center is a great example of that. Faculty members from every department on campus. We have a Center for Microbiome Innovation. In fact, they shifted from studying certain disease types that they had in the past to generating new technologies for our wastewater assessment that helps us identify the coronavirus faster. In fact, before people even develop symptoms, we know if it's present, the virus is present in wastewater in certain buildings, and then we reach out to people, inform them of that possibility. But you can see these are just a sample of the types of things. And they range from basic science kinds of things, or artificial intelligence, data analytics, all the way out to the Center for Ethics in Science and Technology, or practical ethics in arts and humanities. So the cool thing about UC San Diego is that we were built with that notion, or that framework, that we can bring people together from different disciplines by focusing on a common problem or a common challenge. Yeah. So I think I have just a couple more slides. Most people don't know that we have this wonderful resource, the Natural Reserve System in San Diego County. And the Natural Reserve System is a system that spans the entire UC system. We have 4 sites that UC San Diego oversees. And we do research in those sites, but they're also beautiful places to go and walk and to just enjoy nature. And that's especially important, isn't it, during this pandemic period?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think I might have one more slide. There we go. So, I'm open to any questions that anyone has, and want to thank everybody for just joining today so we can have this conversation, and appreciate it, Bryce.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for running through those slides. I really appreciate you taking the time to kind of do that, because there's just so many things within the portfolio that you oversee that many of us do sometimes not realize just how robust it is. So for our moderators, if we could perhaps maybe stop the slide share. There we go. Perfect. So kind of bring it back in, and I definitely have some more questions for you, Sandy, so we can kind of run through those and maybe get a little bit more personal here. So we've talked about kind of the research portfolio that you oversee. So I have some questions that'll hit on that as well. But you had mentioned how excited you are to be working at UC San Diego, and there's so many things for you to enjoy working on as a vice chancellor. So I don't want to get you in trouble here. I'm not asking you to like name a favorite or anything, but the question that I have is, what have you enjoyed most about being vice chancellor for research affairs?
Well, that's a great question. There are so many things I like about my job, and there are things that are challenging. But for me, I feel like I'm on a mini sabbatical every day. I come into work and I am learning about some new exciting research that, one of our stellar scholars involved in, or there's a new type of project that maybe we've never done before, and we have to problem solve together to figure out, well, how are we going to make this happen? And that's the part of the job that I really like. It's so stimulating, and we're developing sometimes new ways to deal with these challenges that other campuses might take 2 years to move through the process, and we can do it in a few weeks. That's the part that's fun to me. I kind of feel like my job as a vice chancellor of research is to facilitate people being able to do the work that they really like to do and want to do. So that's the part that's fun for me.
We had a couple questions come in while you were talking, and they align with some of the questions that I have as well. So I'll try to weave them in as we go along. First one that came in was actually kind of touching on your own research, and so that kind of my next one. And so, you're not just the vice chancellor here; you're also a distinguished professor. And so, what are you looking forward to? When you do step down from vice chancellor and you continue to research. And can you tell us a little bit more about the research that you do?
Oh, love to. Boy, I could spend the rest of the time talking about my research. So when I moved into this position, I did negotiate for something that's a little bit unusual, and that is that in addition to all the administrative responsibilities, I wanted to be able to continue my research because I do longitudinal work. I study development, and I'm particularly interested in adolescent development and how our experiences in life might change the trajectories that we take. In particular, I focus on alcohol and drug involvement. So it was a little bit of a negotiation with the chancellor that I came in under, Mary Ann Fox. And it was kind of provisional. She said, I don't know if you can do your job and still maintain your research. So I did what I think was a smart thing. I got really smart people around me. And for the 2 large consortia that I oversee, I have co-PIs for that. And they have really helped me be able to maintain my research focus, even though it's a small amount of time that I allot to it. And it's a lot of the work is done on weekends rather than during the week. After 10 years of being in this position, I'm in a great place with regard to going back to doing my research. Both of these are longitudinal studies. One is the largest, it's called ABCD, the Adolescent Brain and Cognitive Development Study. And it's the largest funded study of adolescent development that NIH has put together. There are 14 institutions and centers that came together to fund this project. We have 21 sites across the country that are collecting data on adolescents and their families, all the way from information on their physical health and their mental health. We do cognitive testing, we do neuroimaging, we take biosamples, and we're developing new technologies like apps to see how kids are doing at any moment in their day. Apps that allow us to see how much time they're spending on social media on their phones. Some of the PIs in the project are interested in things like sleep and hormones and social development and emotional development. So it's a really comprehensive look at adolescent development. And I will say that that project in particular is really important because here we were studying youth and their families, and then along comes the pandemic. And we got some extra money to be able to do surveys for the teens and their parents to see how they were doing and how the pandemic was impacting their lives. And I will tell you that 40% of those families that are in our project have been economically impacted by the pandemic. That's just a huge number. And I think I wouldn't have had an appreciation for that if we hadn't done these repeated surveys. So as you could tell, I could talk all day about my research, and I love it. And I'm most appreciative that not just Chancellor Fox, but then Chancellor Khosla allowed me to continue to maintain my research, as well as managing the administrative responsibilities of the Vice Chancellor for Research.
Yeah, I mean, I really look forward to hearing more about the research as you get back into it. I mean, having the labs continuing to work on it while you're doing Vice Chancellor roles. Thank you for kind of wearing those two hats, right, and continuing your research while also helping steer the university into, the direction that we've been going now. A couple of other questions that I had for you, as a woman in the sciences, right, and maybe this is fitting for this month of March, the question here, but the question kind of continues to come up in conversations, and that is, how can we promote STEM or STEAM, as sometimes they're calling it, fields for women, right? And kind of secondary to that is, in what ways is UC San Diego contributing to that, leading the charge and promoting those to our young women so that we can continue to have researchers like yourself in the field?
Yeah, I thank you for asking that question, because in this era, in some ways, we just assume, because there are more women faculty, that it's easy and that's going to automatically happen. But I will tell you that just in the process of growing up, there are so many places where it's easy for women, girls, to get derailed. And through stereotypes or through a lack of appreciation of interest, some implicit bias that we have, that women might get steered off track. And I just gave a presentation at my undergraduate alma mater, which is a small liberal arts college in Michigan. And I was sharing with the professors and the students there that I graduated as a mathematics and computer science major and as a psychology major. So I had a dual major. And originally I was a math and computer science major. And That was so long ago that I was the first woman to be inducted in what was a mathematics honorary society there. Actually, it was a fraternity because they're adhered to forbid only men in that organization. And at the ceremony, at the reception after the ceremony, I can remember one of the math professors coming to me and saying, "Oh, are you going to teach elementary school or high school?" And I had no plans, and I had never said I was going to be a teacher. And I have the greatest esteem for teachers, but those were the only two niches that they saw for women who were math and computer science majors at that time. And my goodness, look, here at UC San Diego, a quarter of the people that we graduate in engineering now are women, and we have more women, we're training more women engineers than in any place in the country. So these things come out in a variety of different ways. And I think that, you know, at all levels, from elementary school to high school, all the way on up through college, we need to be really attentive to the implicit bias that we have, and create a sense of community for women in the sciences, which our campus, in fact, does, and also for EDI in general. And, you know, I'd like to call out departments across campus who are doing this, like bioengineering. It has a whole program for EDI and women in engineering. Psychiatry in health sciences has a program to promote women scientists. So all across campus, we're doing this now. And it doesn't really make sense, does it, to cut off half of the population from the sciences? So I'm glad to be living and thriving in this era where we're much more attentive to it.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much. Kind of on a related topic, but it is a related topic. So moving kind of from women in STEM to other issues that are impacting our nation and our local communities and even our campus. In what ways is research affairs addressing anti-racism and creating a culture of inclusion at UC San Diego?
Oh, thank you. Well, I'll mention just a few things. We're doing many things, and you can tell that I consider this a really important area. I think first and foremost, we can keep opportunities for women and underrepresented minorities in the research field sort of top of mind all across campus. And we do that through our research development program, our RAPIDS program, where we send out announcements about opportunities for women and underrepresented minorities or disadvantaged individuals in promoting science. So the federal government and foundations have special programs, particularly for graduate students and postdoctoral scholars and junior researchers. And I feel like our job is to make sure that people who could be advantaged by that know about them. And if they need any help and assistance, we try to provide it. We have developed our own EDI work group within the Vice Chancellor for Research Affairs area. And boy, that group is activist, and I love it. So we're starting to bring greater attention to opportunities that are all across campus, but bring in special lecturers and attend to review and attend to our own hiring processes, our promotion processes, and trying to be sure that everything we do, the processes that we use, the evaluations of leaders in this area all include a consideration for equity, diversity, and inclusion. And I'll give you just one example, Bryce, of something that was near and dear to my heart this past year. There were some funds that came down from the Office of the President to facilitate seed projects, small projects that faculty could apply for to launch or to build the pilot data for COVID-related research. And UC San Diego, as always, has a great response. We had about 24 applicants for that program, just for the amount of money that we had here. And we did our normal review process. People from the academic senate looked at all the applications and chose the top ones, and we funded them. But when I looked at all of the applications, what stood out to me was that of those 24, 23 were from men. And I thought, okay, so we're asking women to do something that they're not able to do right now. So I had a conversation with the Vice Chancellor for Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion, Becky Pettit, and with the Chancellor. And we put together another pool of money using the same topics. And we invited those that had some challenge in their personal life related to COVID that made it difficult for them to apply, to contact us. So you might have children at home that you're watching, or parents at home, or grandparents at home, or for whatever reason, due to maybe socioeconomic challenges or whatever, this was tough for you. So we set that process up so that if you were interested, all you had to do was call us, and we would transcribe your plan, put it on the forms for you, and then take it to the review. And when we did that, we ended up having the same number of applicants. They were predominantly women, and predominantly from individuals from underrepresented backgrounds. And it was clear they had distinct challenges. So just by changing the process a little bit, we can make it more equitable. We can make it easier for people to apply at a time when the challenges might be greater for some than for others. So those are just some examples of things that we're doing, and got to keep our eye on it.
No, that's an amazing story. I mean, really, thank you for sharing that. I from my perspective, and by no means am I an expert in this field, and I appreciate the work that our EDI office and our staff affiliate groups and our resource centers are doing in this space. For me, it all comes down to intentionality. I mean, we have to take an intentional focus on breaking down the barriers, right, that we might have had blinders on, never seen before.
Right.
I mean, we've heard the stories about women and symphonies, and so they had to go to the double blinds, right, where you weren't wearing high heel shoes while you're walking behind the curtain because you could still hear that this is a woman, and that was somehow the biases were coming in and negatively impacting a woman's ability to get on a symphony orchestra.
Yeah.
And now we're finding these other things, right? Identifying ways of, well, now there's this barrier, there's a form, maybe they can't actually take the time to fill this out. And so I think that's an amazing example of how we're trying to meet people where they're at and provide the opportunities where perhaps because of procedural hurdles, they're not able to get a foot in the door. So thank you so much for that. And thank you to VC Pettit and the Chancellor for moving that forward. That's really cool.
Yeah, even in my own research in this, the consortium that I mentioned to you, we've developed what we call the JEDI, which is Justice, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Task Force. And what that group is doing is going back and looking at every aspect of our protocol. Are there things that mean that are more challenging for individuals from underrepresented populations to hear about, or are we asking things in ways that are insensitive or non-appreciative of their challenges? So we're looking at the content. We're also looking at the process. Give you a simple example. When you do this kind of work, if you find that there's someone in imminent danger, maybe we have an adolescent who's suicidal. Normally what happens at any one of those sites is that there's a clinician on call. That person is contacted immediately. If the person decides action needs to be taken, then we would normally call the police, 911, their rapid response team. Well, if you come from an underprivileged population where it's where you feel vulnerable when police are in your presence, we're creating more stress for them. We're not solving a problem, we're creating more stress. And so we've had sites go back and look at alternatives that their cities have. For example, some cities have mental health groups that are accompanied by a policeman but are not dominated by a police officer. And it's the mental health staff that comes from that community to help the family deal with that situation. So both in the content and the process of the way we do science and we gather our information, we can have these subtle biases or unfairnesses that were not intentional. But I think we're at a point in time where we ought to be taking a step back and looking at all of these types of things.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. So I'm just checking our time here. So we're getting close to our 10:45 stop time. I have a couple of other questions and one that came in from the audience. So hopefully we'll be able to. So the question that came in from the audience, and I think this might tie into Office of Innovation and Commercialization, but it might be broader than that. And so Becky RC has written, so what tools do we use to share the research work beyond our campus?
Oh boy, I'm glad you that was asked, because I think UC San Diego in many ways has had an sort of understated approach to our excellence. So many portions of our campus, the various units, whether it's academic affairs, health science, Scripps Institution of Oceanography, or the research affairs, we've all added communication staff to our portfolio so that we can get information out better. This ranges from traditional mechanisms like getting it on through various forms of media, on the news, in newspapers, etc., but also through Twitter accounts, although not everybody's in favor of Twitter accounts, but in Facebook accounts and other types of accounts. I know in research affairs, we try to use as many of these as possible. And for top research stories, we routinely send this up to both the Office of the President so that they can be our megaphone. And we also send this information to the communication leads for campus in general to get it out through their forums. And I like to get that information out to our federal delegates, our congressmen and congresswomen and senators, so they know how we're contributing, not just to science, but research in general is contributing to the public good. And boy, does that make a difference.
Yeah, so really robust communication strategy using all the tools, right? I mean, hey,
right.
Not everybody has Twitter account. I don't. I have Facebook. I don't look at it as much as I used to. But yeah, again, just trying to meet people where they're at, right? Trying to share.
That's right. That's right.
No, perfect.
And a lot of us get our news outside of the traditional channels today, are checking the news all the time.
Absolutely. Yeah. So again, checking the time, we're getting close to the end here. So I'm just looking at a couple of the questions that I had for you. And then of course, I just have a final one that I'll ask. You touched a little bit on COVID research, but maybe perhaps what I can do is send that to you later and we can kind of get your thoughts on that and share it with campus about the COVID research and some of the other questions that go around with that. One of the questions that I wanted to ask really goes to the international research community at UC San Diego, which is a thriving community here. And you know, with the pandemic, how has the visiting scholar, visiting researcher landscape changed, if at all? I mean, I know it has, but kind of can you give us a little idea of how it's changed and maybe ways that the campus has been working to adjust to those changes?
Yeah, thank you for asking. So it has changed substantially. And that is in part because of travel restrictions. Both our faculty and our students going to other international locations and international scholars coming here, graduate students coming here, postdoctoral scholars coming here. So that just really ramped down quickly. So one of the things that we've done both from the academic side of the house and the research side of the house is to try to do as much virtually and remotely as possible. So just as an example, I have two postdocs right now. One of them is in Seattle and has been with me for most of a year. I've never met him in person, but he's been remarkably productive. And we have just as many meetings as if via Zoom as if he were, in the office next door to me. So it's been a tremendous challenge. The pandemic has created that, but it is also the case that there is concern about, there's an ambivalence about international engagement. On the one hand, we know we really need it. That's what academic freedom is all about. And on the other hand, there are lots of concerns about motives of individuals from other countries. And that's a tough tightrope to walk, but I think we're doing it well here.
Yeah, I mean, do you think that some of the opportunities that we've seen through Zoom and remote work will stick post-pandemic?
Yeah, that's a good question, Bryce. Let me give you an example, not from within research, but from within the classroom side of things. We had more students that signed up for classes during this period. This is era of Zoom classes, right, or our webinars, than we previously had. And if you look at the applications to UC San Diego for undergraduate programs, higher than they've ever been before. And so I think that, the ability to offer more online and mixed venue classes, as well as continuing to rebuild our in-person classes, that's what UC San Diego is going to look like in the future. We really are an international campus, both in terms of our research and in terms of our undergraduate academic programs and graduate academic programs.
Yeah, I'm excited for what the future has in store. I mean, it certainly has been a challenge the last year, to say the least, but we have seen such great gains in many different areas. And so, my hope is that for those that are listening in, they've also learned a lot about themselves. They might have found redeveloped a process or something within their personal and professional life, and that they're able to actually chart that out to 2021 and beyond. And so the last question that I have for you is kind of a time for you to give any closing thoughts. And it is, so what are you most excited about for 2021?
Yeah. Well, first of all, let me preface that by saying I think a key to UC San Diego's success, remarkable success, and national reputation during the pandemic has been our staff, because you guys have figured out how to do things that on many other campuses they've not been able to accomplish. And just the level and the quality of the communication and the discourse that we've had has resulted in our being able to continue with our mission for our students and our faculty. So going forward, we have lots of irons in the fire. I think what's the saying? The world is our oyster. We're committing to some new types of research through infrastructure that we're building, BSL-3, for example, animal BSL and animal BSL-3, some of the instrumentation, cryo-EM, for example, and new types of platforms that will allow different parts of campus to work together. So my vision for UC San Diego research in the future is that we're going to get bigger and better. I think these kinds of infrastructure things that we're investing in now will make it easier for faculty to work across disciplines and work collectively in team science. to answer some of the most complex and challenging problems that we have in the world. You know, we can rattle them off in many different ways, you know, but just climate change is one of them. And we have some of the best scientists and some of the needed technology here. And we're doing that work all around the world. So I think we're going to get bigger and better. That's my vision for the future.
I love your optimism. Really do appreciate the time that you've spent with us today and answering my questions and the questions that came in from the staff in your presentation. And unfortunately, that is all the time that we have for today, but hopefully sometime in the future, we might be able to invite you back for something similar to learn maybe more about your research and kind of catch you on the back end after gone back into the lab full time. So I do want to thank you, Sandy, Vice Chancellor Brown, for your time and speaking with us. I want to thank everyone that has been with us today, listening to the Cabinet Conversations. So the Cabinet Conversations team is planning the next set of these meetings. So please keep an eye out at the Staff Association website for our next guests. You can find information about Cabinet Conversations and also see videos from this and our prior conversations at staffassociation.ucsd.edu. Until next time, I want to echo VC Brown's thank you to all staff for the amazing contributions to the campus, for taking care of yourselves and others in this community and continuing to build community while we are apart. And until next time, be well. Thanks all.
Thank you. Bye now.